Good. What's up, good everyone? We are live. I know some of y'all thought I was dead. We are indeed live. Let me update my live status on Blue Sky. I know they say no one's on Blue Sky. I don't care. I did start another Twitter account. God knows why. But main place to find me if I'm not streaming is going to be outside of streaming, right now we're live on Twitch, Kick, and YouTube. I think stream is working on all. I think it is.
Hi, Dad.
But we're currently live on Twitch, Kick, and YouTube. You know what I meant. All right. Anyways, doing it a little bit different today. We're going to be reacting to some content here. A little bit of video game news content. That's probably when I get back regular into streaming. And I know I said I was going to do this like a couple months ago. And then life happened, man. I got sick for like a month. And then I got to where I had like really bad sinusitis for like damn near a month, 3 weeks. And yeah, it was not good. And then I've been super busy at work. But we're going to try to get back in the saddle again. Okay, sorry about that. Family's home right now. They're all home for summer. And, but yeah, I got sick and then I was super busy at work. But we're going to do some gaming news reacts. And right now, what we're reacting to is the negative news cycle that's been happening with Sony. And Sony Pony backlash. So we're going to react to some videos. But yeah, and then I'll give my 2 cents. So, but not going to be gaming today. We're just going to be reacting to some content. So that being said, and I've got the original videos linked in the chat description or in the video description for the stream. So on all my streams, I do have the original videos linked. All right, but come check us out, okay? All right, so we're going to start out with the first video. First video is from Endymion TV, and he's talking about PlayStation Plus refunds are skyrocketing, which, by the way, I didn't even know you could do that, and I need to do that because I meant to cancel it, and then Sony just auto-billed me. And they raised the price. They charged me like $80. So now I know I can refund my PlayStation Plus. I am going to get a refund on my PlayStation Plus because they auto-billed me for 80 something bucks, and I can't remember the last time I've been online on my PS4 Pro.
And even more nuclear as...
Oh, hold on. I'm going to change the sound to my headphones.
people are now boycotting and canceling their Plus subscriptions in open rebellion against Sony. And Sony is doubling down on repurposing their entire manufacturing future already, as well as other companies are mocking Sony, as fans are openly rejecting their whole decision pretty much, and they want to increase the prices of their services on top of everything else, if you can believe it. Like, where do I even start with this one? I guess let's start with Sony's PS Plus cancellations first, and then we'll move on to the physical media future stuff later. As seen here from Insider Gaming, PlayStation fans are canceling PS Plus in protest of digital future. If you haven't noticed, people are really mad about this. I don't blame them either. One of the only ways that people are able to actually hit Sony where it hurts is to unsubscribe en masse, and it's working. Here's one user who confirmed that they refunded not only Grand Theft Auto Ultimate Edition, but also canceled their PlayStation Plus as well, which that's a big statement to make.
Okay, so first off, I'm going to say, I mean, that's good, but this kind of crap needs to happen like on a mass scale. People need to cancel on a mass scale. Okay? I want to say, Asmongold, say what you want about him, but he's got some bars. And the other day he said it's not a boycott, it's a goycott. Okay? But hey, you want to hit these people where it hurts? Hit them in the damn wallet. Okay? But this is a start. This needs to happen on a massive scale though for it to impact Sony.
Another user is seen here confirms they are not renewing their PlayStation Plus come July 14th when it expires for them. Another user is seen here also canceled their Plus subscription as well in open defiance against Sony. Another user also confirms, yep, they canceled as well. Here's another person confirming they too are canceling Sony services due to the physical media stuff. Another user here rallies others to cancel their PS Plus as they do the same. I like how Sony's automated email also says, "We're sorry to see you go." I mean, you caused this to happen. What do you mean you're sorry? But here's another user confirming.
You want to know the truth? Sony is not sorry to see you go. They're sorry to see your money go. That is the only thing Sony gives a shit about. They don't care about you as a player or an individual. You are just a cash cow that they can squeeze the teats until they're bone dry. Yep. Squeeze the teats. Milk you, bone dry. It's the only time they care. If you're giving them money, Sony could give a fuck less about you. They do not care about you. Okay?
They're canceling as well. Here's another user also saying they're done with PlayStation and canceling. I could keep going, but you get the point. Everywhere is filled with people just canceling their subscriptions. All of these posts shown alone, they come from this post here, where this user showed people how to cancel their subscriptions. The point being is that people are walking away from PlayStation en masse. But not only are people walking away from Sony in mass protests, a lot of users are also citing the Insomniac leak that happened, if you don't remember, as more reasons for why this whole thing is kind of bogus the more you look into it. So if you forgot, Insomniac, that's the Spider-Man, Wolverine, Ratchet & Clank development studio that got hacked a while back, well, tons of stuff actually got leaked, like future games and more. That's how we know the Venom game is coming at some point and then some. Anyways, the part that matters here is from the Insomniac leak that key information got shown that revealed how Sony's first-party games were selling in a physical versus a digital format. As GameGPU.com reported here recently, the Insomniac leak tells a very different story compared to what Sony is actually saying publicly. As they say here, recent claims that digital versions of games account for 78% of total PlayStation console sales have been taken out of context. This statistic includes numerous indie titles and older games that are exclusively available digitally, significantly distorting the overall picture. To objectively assess true demand, hand, it's necessary to consider major releases that were released simultaneously on physical media and in digital stores. So already the numbers are being manipulated on purpose in order to paint a different picture than what Sony is actually saying. It does get more in depth though. Let's read this next part. Data from Insomniac Games leaked last year reveals a completely different picture. According to internal Sony documents, 31 of the 33 major story-driven exclusives sold more on physical discs. Uncharted 4 accounted for 83% of physical sales. Sackboy and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart accounted for over 75%. Spider-Man and The Last of Us Part 2 accounted for over 60%. Digital sales dominated primarily in the games as a service segment, such as MLB The Show, the baseball game, where users prefer to stick with discs for regular gaming sessions. So essentially, Sony saying their games sell less on physical to such a degree might...
So, I mean, that sounds like it tracks. And, of course, you know, Sony and these other corporations, they're going to skew the numbers to make it seem like you wanting physical media makes you an outlier and you just need to get with the program and just go to this all digital future. Okay? So first off, I say no. Now, I game on PC mostly. Most of my games are digital only. I don't have a physical disc with the game code or anything like that. I have had physical disc for PC, but I haven't had a physical disc drive on my PC the last I can remember. But we can also say when it comes to GOG and Steam and some of these other digital storefronts where the majority of my library is, they are not going to gate me out of my library for whatever multitude of reasons, like Sony has been shown to do.
Might actually not be the full truth. Of course, the games that are being used from the Insomniac leak come from years back, but since then things could have changed dramatically. Either way, the evidence points that in terms of Sony's first-party games, they have not in fact sold better digitally over physically, at least according to Insomniac's internal leak data. And as they said, the numbers being skewed could be using digital-only games as a pivot to influence those decisions. So why do that? Well, it's simple. Publishers have to pay upwards of 30% of each copy sold to retailers when you buy them physically. So in general, they're losing 30% of their profits per copy sold to you in a store, but if that were digital only, well, they get it all, first party anyways. So this pivot, in theory, could be happening in order to ensure that Sony has complete control, but in return, you are losing options. This can't even be disputed. I mean, again, it leaked from Insomniac, a first-party Sony studio themselves. Although, the backpedaling is already happening. We have damage control articles like this one recently from Vice.
Can I just say something? Like, and it's not just Vice. It's like Vice, Polygon. There's first off, I don't even know how Polygon is still even like not tits up, but Polygon, Vice. There's been a couple other big game mags online that are just shilling hard for Sony, and I don't understand why. I could give you my theories. I could tell you that, hey, those guys are on the take from either Sony or some of these other larger companies that invest in Sony and these digital rags to have these supposedly independent games media companies just dick ride for the corpos. Like, please explain it to me. Someone please explain it to me, because I don't get it. These game publications are supposed to just report on news, not give an opinion about why Sony is the good guy here and hey, Sony's doing a great thing, right? Or any other big game corporation. Because I'm going to tell you, at the end of the day, every single one of these game corporations would not piss on you if you were on fire. unless the money you were going to spend on their game or their service or their console was also on fire. Then they might piss on you. Otherwise, they do not care. These companies do not give a shit.
States that only 12% of sales of Sony's top-selling games were from physical sales in 2026. The source that Vice is referencing is Alinea Analytics, which posted the games that have sold the most on PS5 and how much each game sold, which is not really fair, but it is what it is. As it keeps going, the physical split is smaller than digital either way, and they again also use games like Forza Horizon 5 as another digital gacha card, but that game too is digital only on PlayStation, so again, it skews heavily in one direction too. Another big part of this article is that FC26 was also used by 6.4 million PlayStation users via PlayStation Plus itself. However, Vice also confirms, as I highlighted there, that first-party PlayStation games are indeed selling more physically than third-party, and they also cite that Insomniac leaked.
You don't really have to be connected online to play these single player games. So I'm curious what the experience is going to be for that. You know?
Some capacity, still a viable way of selling games, because there is absolutely a fan base out there who buys them. For me, I always buy my JRPG games physically, especially if they're made by niche dev studios. Even then I still do it, because those copies are very hard to come by, something that people want, obviously. I mean, we've seen games that are older rise in price like crazy for a long time too. You can go to any mom and pop shop that sells games and see what I mean. Super Nintendo games still sell for hundreds of dollars a pop, as do old school PlayStation 1 games, even PS3 ones. For example,
So there's something I want to add to that. As much as I like physical media, I don't agree with this bullshit. Like, I don't think that companies should be profiting off of either real or artificial scale. It's going to game developers, not a single one. So, but this kind of shit, to me, it needs to stop. Where like, for example, they're showing PS3 X-Men Origins Wolverine. I'm actually surprised that game would even go for that much. To be 100% honest, but for example, some of the Fire Emblem games for 3DS. Hell, 3DSs are going for crazy expensive right now. And then, you know, using that and spending that, dropping $300 something, $1,000 on a secondhand game. To me, that doesn't really track. I would encourage people to emulate games before doing that. And I mean, for legacy consoles, it's really not hurting anyone. You know, the devs aren't getting any money off that. I mean, you know, it's that, or you wait for the slop that Nintendo gives you with Nintendo Switch Online, or you buy the premium tier of PlayStation Plus to get that retro game that you really want. And I don't know if someone could tell me, do devs that are still around even get any of that money for the subscription for the retro games that are offered on these subscription services? I don't know. I have no idea. I would have to look that up, unless someone can tell me or link me that info. But I don't see a lot of these. You know, the only people getting money is Sony, Nintendo, you know, the publishers of these subscription services.
X-Men Origins Wolverine on PS3, as seen here on Canadian eBay, is $110 for a game that is well over a decade old. I think PlayStation software that is physical, if kept in mint condition and preserved, could in theory become the next batch of games that people decades in the future seek out at higher price points too, like we do Super Nintendo and stuff right now. Because again, owning a game physically, or really anything, it just hits different, right? I still own my PS1 Final Fantasy games. I still have Chrono Cross and Legend of Dragoon on PlayStation 1 physically on my shelf.
So I kudos to Endiaman TV for that, because I wish I could say that. I didn't even sell those games. I had the games. And my brother sold them or let them get stolen. So a lot of these games that I had physically, I had Legend of the Dragoon, I had Final Fantasy VII, I had Final Fantasy VIII. In fairness, I bought Final Fantasy VII, not the remake, the original, I'd say 3 other times outside of me owning the physical disc. So if you ask me, do I feel any qualms about emulating these games on DuckStation or some other emulator? No, I feel 0 qualms. Because that money's not going back to devs anyways.
Those games mean something to me. I think getting rid of
I wish
physical
I
in
still had
general is
physical
just
copies
a
of those
bad
games.
idea. I mean, physical media is still huge. Go look at how large the Pokemon card industry is right now. Even Magic the Gathering is still making boatloads of money too, right? For example, I collect the Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering cards. When I buy the booster boxes, they were originally around $200 each. Now, as seen here, they're like $300 each. And don't even get me started on how expensive the special booster box bundles cost. They're like thousands now. The point is that physical media is important because they are collector's items. That is what they are. I mean, I have a massive collection of Yu-Gi-Oh cards from when I was a kid still to this day, and I'm still buying them. I want all the originals. I wouldn't care about those cards if I had them only in a digital format, but the fact that I have them physically in my hand and I can see them and hold them, I mean, that's everything, man. That's why physical matters, and Sony is 100% ruining that future of that potential industry and that fan base by doing what they're doing. It's no wonder why people are refunding their PS Plus and walking away the way that they are.
So I think a lot is to be made to the point Endiaman is making in this video, and that's this. For example, if you look behind me, I have a bunch of physical figures, collectors figures, right? My brother, he doesn't collect figures, he collects cards and he collects comics. Let me preface that by saying he has no kids, he's married, right? Him and his wife both work, and that's what he spends his money on, okay? And he's got tons of comic books, tons of playable cards, like TCG cards. He collects the Marvel ones, okay? Occasionally, when my kids come over, or even when I come over, he'll bust out the collection. You can't do that with the digital collection. You can't say, hey man, look at this. I have the deluxe edition of Grand Theft Auto on digital. Look at this. No, it's not the same as compared to having like a deluxe collector's edition of a physical game.
Because Sony's not catering to what these people want anymore. Even IGN has taken the side of the players, which is not very common for them, as seen here.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I know I just paused, and I'm not trying to milk this video. I'm really not. But when IGN of all people is agreeing with the players, with the general opinion of the people over the corpos and the shells, you know you've done messed up, man. You know you've screwed up. Because if IGN's saying, hey, you know what? Y'all are right. Like, IGN. It's like that meme, literally the worst person you know just made a good point, right? That's what this is.
They call PlayStation's decision offensive, and you cannot trust digital purchases, and you cannot trust the corporations that offer them. Based, actually. I love to see that. As IGN said it here, the ability
Kudos,
to simply
IGN.
re-download content you
go.
purchased in the past should be a bare minimum
Way to
service,
go.
and I agree with that. In my previous video about Sony, I spoke on Studio Canal. That's a distributor of movies, okay? So they revoked over 500 movies from PlayStation's library. And whether people paid for those movies or not, they were removed nonetheless because you ultimately did not own own them, and once those licenses ran out, which they did, everyone who bought those movies lost their access for forever. And that's scary, right?
It sounds like it's time to pirate every single Studio Canal movie ever made. If you ask me. That's just my opinion. I don't even know what movies that studio makes. But I'm going to look it up and pirate it just on principle alone.
Right? Because that is 100% losing access to what you paid for. That's why people are in open rebellion right now, because you don't own anything. The crazier part is that Sony has already turned that switch, and things are now moving very, very quickly, okay? Look at this here. The Verge reported that Sony's disc factory that has created the vast majority of their physical inventory is already being repurposed. The factory, which is located in Austria, has already been notified in advance of these changes, and Sony has also invested a further $34 million into the factory in order to repurpose that factory to shift from making PlayStation physical media to now optical micro lenses instead. These micro lenses can be used in AR or VR headsets, medical devices.
So, before he even finished what that article was talking about, I had already known that this was going to be for some AI or augmented reality or some bullcrap, right? Again, like, these companies keep forcing this stuff on us, saying, hey, just accept the slop. You don't know what you want. We know better than you. And that's the part that I think is pissing players off. Because I don't know how many people have a VR headset. Right? I could look that up. I could find that out. How many people that are Sony players have a Sony VR? But I can tell you, the Sony VR is a niche product. It's not something that, like, the majority of people want in their homes. I don't want it in my home.
Or camera sensors. But the days of Sony's factories making physical discs to ship out around the world is already ending for their biggest factories, which tells me that this is happening whether people want it or not, because I doubt that Sony is going to, pivot back from their tens of millions in investments here to shift to something else now. Other brands are already making fun of Sony too for their changes because it's stupid. Like KFC, for example, is seen here, who said their food will no longer be available to eat. But instead, you can now only eat their food through fake PNG formats, obviously to make fun of Sony. KFC didn't even stop there. They then said here that they will release DLC when it comes to sauces, and that each will be sold separately, and within the year, they're going to introduce the fried chicken pass so you can get the whole catalog for a monthly price. Obviously, it's fake, I know that, but they're still making fun of PlayStation Plus with that one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so this is hilarious to me, but Domino's UK was getting in on this. The corporate food accounts are just dunking. 360 posterizing on Sony, and I'm here for it. To me, this is hilarious. One, because it's just a joke. It's a joke, right? It's a joke. All right? Calm down, Sony Ponies. It's a joke. All right. But the other thing is, this is just some, like, minimum wage paid intern just saying, hey, this is how ridiculous this is. Right? And I'm here for it. I'm here for it, for real.
And that's great. You also won't even be able to use VPNs to access their menu in other countries, as KFC says here, or even share your chicken with friends. Again, a clear joke about Sony not allowing game sharing, and if you pirate their chicken, they're going to come and find you at your house. They're having fun, at least somebody is, but when KFC puts it like that, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous when you say it out loud. Even Domino's Pizza had fun with
Damn, I keep forgetting to turn my mic back on. My fault. So a lot of this has to do with, IP ownership, digital management, copyrights, things like that. Okay? But, the late 2000s, no, not late 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, there was an ad campaign talking about you wouldn't download a car. Okay, try me. Because if I can pirate something, especially for a service that is lacking, I am going to find a way to do it. I'll download some chicken. Okay? I will download it.
With this, where they said this in response to trends in the gaming industry, as of the 1st April 2027, Domino's UK will cease production of physical pizzas and shift to production of digital pizzas only. Consumers will be able to download our full range of delicious pizza codes and, using the power of the imagination, enjoy them in an entirely virtual sense. All I gotta say is, yes, just keep clowning on Sony, okay? I love to see it. Keep doing it. But if the public embarrassment and the repurposing of their factories wasn't enough, Sony has also announced that PlayStation Plus as a service is going to get even more expensive potentially, as Insider Gaming said here. So the gist of this was that Sony CEO Hideaki Nishino, alongside Herman Hulst and others at PlayStation, were answering questions with investors as to what the future of the whole company will have, obviously. And the general idea was that, as you can see here, that Nishino said that PS Plus is offering strong value to their player base, and that currently 40% of PS Plus users are subscribed to the highest tier of Plus available, because it...
Okay. So, first off, value is relative. Value is relative. What might be a value to you is not a value to the next person. Secondly, value is driven by the customer receiving the product, not the company or organization offering said product. Like, Sony cannot sell bullshit and then say it's a value. Value is derived by the person purchasing the product. And according to that person, they may have got value. But value is subjective. Regardless of what price for anything is, right? A customer buying said product makes a determination at time of purchase and then after purchase on whether they got value out of it. But you, who are selling the product, cannot say, we offer strong value. Okay, well, I would argue, do your customers feel the same way? Because I just got charged another $80 for PlayStation Plus. They raised the price, offered nothing new. Because I had the base tier. They'd offer 1 or 2 games a month. Most of them were trash, or I already owned them. The only person that downloaded the free games that I got from my PS Plus was my kid's friend when he'd come over and spend the night. He would download the games and he would play them. Last year, that PS Plus cost $60. Sony offering nothing new. We're not offering any more games. We're not offering 3 games as opposed to 2 every month. But then they raised my price 33%. For what? And so, no, screw you, Sony. Your PS Plus does not offer a value. And I'll argue that the only reason why people pay for the higher tiers is because if you don't subscribe to the premium tier, every other tier of PS Plus sucks. It sucks. If you look at the games on offer at the base tier, which is hardly anything, you get maybe 24 games a year, and most of them are like $10 games or super old games. I would argue that's not a very good value at all. The medium tier, it's okay. I've seen the games they offer for the medium tier. It's all right. But the only tier that makes any sort of sense, and it's crazy expensive. I just don't, it's too rich for my blood. And I'm not saying I'm broke. I'm not broke. But I'm just not going to pay that premium just to get some actual decent games.
It gives them access to everything, obviously. Well, while PS Plus is a key driver of profit for Sony, the challenge is, according to Sony, they need to ensure that the service is able to continue as it needs to keep requiring new games to be added constantly to the service. For example, in July 2026, which is right now as this video being made, Modern Warfare 3 is the main headline game for PS Plus users, a game that took hundreds of millions of dollars to create for Activision. And if people stay subscribed, they can continue to play these games they have in their accounts for as long as they are still subscribed. For example, I have been using PS Plus since about 2012 or 2013, I think it was. So the amount of games that I have saved in my library from redeeming games every single month is borderline ridiculous. I think the majority of my library on PlayStation is the Plus games. It's gotten to the point where it's better, honestly, to not buy as many games because they might just be added to the service anyways. Personally, for me, at glance anyways, PS Plus is a solid deal on paper. I think if someone were to buy a PS5 or even a 4 right now, they would subscribe to Plus for a year and they would objectively get more games that way through the service than spending extra money to play them one by one. But regardless of that value, which is a lot lot, I will admit, the all gotcha argument is still yes. At the end, you still don't own anything. And you're right, you don't. At any moment, right, Sony can remove anything they want, which they do every month. Some game gets removed from these services. They do. And this, again, ties into that whole digital future and why people are so angry about this, and rightfully so. Because yes, you own nothing in this sense, right? So to many, what's even the point? And if all your games access is tied to PS Plus, which is likely many people at PlayStation, then a price hike for another update for PS Plus in the future is going to be inevitable, because Sony can now just charge more and more. And then you will have to pay for it if you want that access still. Like Nintendo has also increased their pricing for their online subscription too. Xbox is the only one that has reduced their price, but that reduced price comes with games people actually wanted to play. Like for example, the new Call of Duty games are now removed, which was a big reason for why people wanted to use Game Pass in the first place. So it's all a double-edged sword is the...
I'm going to say this. I'm not one of those people. I could give a crap less about Xbox. Or, not Xbox. I give a crap less about COD. Even when I had the Xbox Ultimate, I tried Black Ops 6. Tried to play through the campaign. It was like slop. It was nonsense. And I was just like, okay, screw this. And I uninstalled it. But I think out of the year that I had PS Plus, or not PS Plus, Game Pass Ultimate, and I had it for at least a year before they raised the prices, and I said, go screw yourselves, right? But I played COD for maybe a total of less than 2 months out of the whole time. And it was off and on, and I played the last COD when it had come out, and I'm a weirdo. I don't play multiplayer on COD. I play the campaign. And then some of the campaign stories are better, some of them are really weak. But I honestly don't think COD has had a decent campaign single player since Modern Warfare 3. That might be a hot take. I don't know. It might be a hot take to play COD for the campaign, but I think Modern Warfare 3 was the last great single-player campaign for COD. And I know what people say. No one plays COD for single player. I do. So go screw yourself, because I play it for the single player. I don't really enjoy multiplayer on most games. The only games I really enjoyed the multiplayer experience has been Bloodborne and some of the Dark Souls games when people aren't cheating. But that's it.
Point here, nothing is 100% either way, but the point is that Sony is stuck making things more expensive, and eventually this will hit a point where people just can't realistically afford it anymore. The problem here, however, is that Sony gains all the advantages, while we as the people gain nothing. By repurposing the factories and the like, Sony is saving boatloads on physical costs that are being removed, but it doesn't mean that games are going to be cheaper, so you're going to be paying the same for less essentially, and yeah, that's a problem. Honestly, in general, I think the games right now are just too expensive as is, especially in Canada where I live. It is just too much money to buy every new game, and I also saw people online raging about another potential controversy as seen here from Gaming Bible, where users were saying that their physical games trophy data and playtimes are being removed, while the whole digital games that they owned were not. I did want to bring this one up because Gaming Bible and others reported that they spoke to PlayStation support about this, and they can actually confirm that this issue is a bug and Sony is actively working to resolve it right now. So for those saying that Sony is deleting physical games data from your console or like the playtime and all that, they aren't. It's a bug, but it might take a bit before that data is fixed. But I still wanted you to know that either way so that, disinformation doesn't go around. But I'm also seeing chatter that Sony is very worried about the backlash on.
So I like that Endiamon kind of points out the other side of things because, look, I am probably the biggest tinfoil, aluminum foil hat wearer you ever seen. But you know what? Not every time things like this happen with the big corpos, right? Is it like some devious people in the shadows and the shareholders like, yeah, yes, That will show them. No. No. Sometimes it's just incompetence, which is crazy from a multi-billion company like Sony. Sony is probably the biggest console-wise gaming company there is, and you think they'd be able to get this right. But, you know, even these big multi-billion corpos that you're spending 80 plus bucks a month for a subscription service, you know what? They mess up sometimes too. Okay? Just because you're giving them more money does not mean they're going to give you a better service and they screw things up. Okay? It happens. It happens, y'all. Okay?
Online, but I can't confirm if that one's real or not. But if that's true, that's hilarious because they deserve it. While part of me sees why the digital future is happening, you know, it is profitable, it costs less because nothing is manufactured and all that, I get it. I still hate the idea of giving any one company more control than they currently already have. From a corporate perspective, it makes sense for them, but for us, it's where that conflict will begin, because seeing everyone push back the way that they have been doing, it has been nothing short of beautiful. Honestly, I'm happy that this has united everyone the way that it has. I think everyone needs to actively push back here, no matter what opinions you have.
So I agree. I love that players are finally customers. People are finally uniting against these corpos. I think the only thing that's been more uniting than the PlayStation vitriol has been the World Cup in the U.S. And I think if we could focus that hate and that vitriol towards the right source, towards the big billionaires and elites, I think we might be okay. But I don't know. I need more people pissed off, and I need more people united against this crap.
In other senses, because we have to unify in this fight together. The fact that entire storefronts are closing, like PS3 and Vita, in the near future is why this also matters. I don't think this is backlash that is happening because people hate digital. I think it's because we just don't want digital to be the only option going forward. But the problem here is that the numbers, they have been skewed. When companies are talking about how big the digital sales are for them, they're not just talking about games. They're conveniently lumping everything, right? From DLC, microtransactions, battle passes, in-game currency stuff. Even paid expansions are put into that pile. That's disingenuous. Those categories can make the overall digital percentage look much larger than if you were only comparing boxed games to downloaded full games, obviously. That doesn't mean that companies are falsifying numbers, at least so far, but it means headline statistics don't always tell the whole story, which is the point here. So
they're not falsifying numbers, but they're definitely cherry picking and skewing stuff to paint a picture, right? To where if you're against this stuff, if you're against the digital only future, right, you're the weirdo, you're the outcast, and you just need to get on board, right? So first off, I think that's dangerous thinking with anything, not just gaming, right? You could say, well, the majority of people want, I don't know, whatever it is, insert X amount, insert X freedom or X liberty or X right as an individual, right? Well, you know what? 76% of people could be stupid and idiotic and uneducated, right? But stop trying to paint this narrative like if I don't want this or you don't want this, you're the weirdo, okay? Just get on board. Just accept it. Because no.
when these companies are saying, oh, nobody buys physical anymore. Well, that's just not true. The reality is far more nuanced than that, and they know it. I think really why they're doing this is because as long as physical games exist in retailers like Amazon and beyond, it is going to create competition for Sony. And if those used markets continue to exist, it means that people will have options beyond what's on the digital storefront. Because by having digital only, that will centralize everything, right? There's advantages to digital only only, I know that, but the trade-offs, they might not be worth it in the end. It's not just Sony, I know this. Every publisher is favoring these sorts of ecosystems over other products or subscriptions, over ownership. The reason why probably is revenue then becomes predictable for them. And investors, whether we want to admit it or not, they love predictability. Physical media doesn't really offer that same level of predictability because prices can then vary and range like crazy, right? Used or whatever. That's why the entire AAA industry appears to be moving in that same direction. Seeing people cancel their PlayStation Plus subscriptions, that's interesting because I wonder, will that even stay that way? For example, when GTA 6 inevitably drops in November, will people come running back to play it and then subscribe again? I don't know yet. What I do know is that Sony's getting a lot of heat, while places like Steam, who built that digital...
You want to know the truth? You want to know the sad truth? Okay. I think, and it's already happening, but this vitriol will create a dip in Sony stock. It will create a dip in revenue for Sony, right? But regardless of any vitriol, regardless of any hate, regardless of any pushback, regardless of customers right now voting with their wallets, and that's good, that needs to happen. Do not keep paying to be treated like crap. That's insane. Unless that's a kink for you. I don't know. Some people have a kink like that. Some people pay, certain people to whip them and do all kinds of crazy stuff and spank them and tell them they're filth, and they pay them thousands of dollars a month to do this, right? It's called a pay pig, all right? But last I checked, none of these corporations are going to... I'm not here to kink shame. I'm not here to yuck your yum. But at the same token, if you're giving corporations money to treat you like literal trash, I don't know. I don't get that one. So people do need to vote with their wallets. I do believe they need to push back against this. But the truth of it is, when GTA 6 comes out, it's not going to make GTA 6, and it and GTA 6 is going to sell just fine. It's going to sell like gangbusters. Because GTA 6 is one of those games. Rockstar is one of those publishers that can literally treat their users like crap, and people will still give them money. People will still be pay pigs for Rockstar. Okay? But I don't think any of this is worth paying the cost of admission. And if you feel that way, then y'all need to push. I think that clip's from Death Stranding 2. I still haven't played that game. I'm going to. I'm eventually going to buy that game. But an amazing game. The first game was amazing. The second one looks even better. And so I will probably eventually buy that game now that it came out on PC. But I bought that game twice. I bought it for PS4, and I bought it for PC. And when I had it for PS4, I never played it. And then I eventually got around to playing it on
Valve and Steam has done for their players too. PlayStation needs better refund policies. We need more frequent sales that are also competitive, and that's key. Because Sony needs to constantly look at what Xbox, Nintendo, and Steam, Epic Game Store, whatever are doing sales-wise, and then match them or do better. Because they need reasons to keep people on their platform, and the best way to do that is to meet the discounts that people are enjoying somewhere else, but also have them on PlayStation 2. It's obvious that Sony's trying to become, I guess, the main gaming platform. But personally, I don't.
People wanted a PS5 and they couldn't get a PS5. So guess what? Gamers went where they could to game. And so even people that were loyal to Sony, loyal to PlayStation, like I was a Sony pony, okay? But I also got to a point. I could not find nor afford the cost of the PS5 when it launched. And then I just let time go on. And so I gamed where I could afford it back then, during the pandemic. And yeah, we were getting stimmy checks and all this stuff. But I said, no, I'm not dropping almost $1,000 for a scalped PS5. I'll just hold on to my PS4 Pro. And I did. And even that, I really didn't play that much. And then I said, well, this is not affordable, nor available. And so I stopped playing Sony. And so I actually went where gaming provided value. And you know where gaming provided value at the time? The Nintendo Switch. The thing is, a bunch of other people locked down during the pandemic, and I actually worked through the pandemic, realized the same thing, and they bought up all the normie Switches. So you couldn't get a normie Switch for a reasonable price. So I bought a Switch Lite for $200. And guess what? The experience was good enough, and I gamed, most of my gaming back then was on my Switch Lite. And I played on PC. But I think COVID and the chip shortage that occurred during COVID and on the backside of COVID lockdowns and with everyone inside, it made people realize that the console wars are dead. And now it's the platform wars. So it's where are you going to get the best experience gaming? And where are you going to get the best value? And the other place I found value, and it wasn't for me, it was for my kids, was the Xbox Series S. Back then, the Series S, the 1 terabyte, digital only, mind you, was $299. And then Game Pass Ultimate, when you bought the 3-month increments, was roughly $12 and some change a month. And so I subscribed to that for a year. I played my games on PC. My kids downloaded and played dozens of games on the Xbox. And it was my Game Pass machine. Now, the Series S is not even a value proposition. And they lowered the price of the Game Pass. That's great. But now the Series S is retarded expensive to where I can't even justify me getting a Game Pass subscription and buying a Series S. I'm holding on to my Series S right now, the one I bought during COVID, for dear life. Because my kids play on it.
They're going to be able to do it the way that they're doing it because their greed is getting in the way. Steam is where they're at because they are very competitive, but in a positive sense. Their prices are usually lower, right, than any other storefront because I guarantee you, Steam is constantly checking what Sony, Xbox, Nintendo, Epic Game Stores especially, and then on, and seeing what they're offering a similar game that they have at, and they're probably undercutting it by a few dollars or even more than that at least, right? And that sort of thing will add up. You have to think of gaming ecosystems as if they're all one big grocery store each in a city, right?
So this is a big reason why Epic, Sony, a bunch of companies were hating on Valve for saying that they had a monopoly in the Valve Steam digital storefront. The thing that's different with Valve is that Valve allows players to buy their keys from third-party sources. Valve does not lock down digital purchases to only being bought within Valve. That's the difference between Valve and Sony. Okay? I try to stay away from the gray market key sites. The last time I used a gray market key site, I kind of got burnt. I got the game, and it was great. I got it for a really good price. And it was Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. But I never used a gray market again. And when I say gray market, I'm not talking about, like, I think they're called Fanatical now. They used to call themselves No, they were called Fanatical. They're called Bundle Stars. Bundle Stars is a reputable site. Green Man Gaming is a reputable third-party game key site, right? I'm talking about some of these sites like G2A that are a storefront for third-party sellers, and they sell you a key. I bought a key for that game, and I got said game. The part they didn't tell you is that you had to register through like some kind of shady preset credentials and then change those credentials to your credentials. Basically, it was a Chinese-based account. I had to take those account credentials and then change them to my credentials to play the game. So I couldn't just use the game on my main Steam account, okay? And I never used a gray CD key site again. I still use Bundle Stars or Fanatical or whatever the hell they call themselves now. I haven't used Green Man Gaming in a while. But that's the difference between Valve and Sony. Sony has actively blocked redeeming keys from third-party sites. Valve has not. Okay? So Valve is not keeping you from getting your game keys or your game purchases from other locations. They're also not blocking you from your own content that you paid for. So again, like a lot of this is not an apples to apples argument.
People are going to naturally navigate to the grocery store that will have the best prices. Maybe Sony, as a grocery store, will say, but we have the best premium beef products or something. Okay, that's fine, but if Steam is offering similar things for far cheaper, people are just going to go to that grocery store and buy the...
Again, I would argue against that. Because if Sony is offering the premium beef product, right? Whatever is exclusive to Sony, they've got like 3 exclusive games. Are you ready for them? Demon Souls Remake. And Sony shuttered that studio, Blue Point Studios. So, there's a game called Soros. And then Ghost of Yote. 3 exclusive stakes that I can only buy from the Sony store and nowhere else. So again, like, what is the point of me buying a PS5 or subscribing to PS Plus or any of Sony's services or goods? You've got 3 exclusive games and a shitty experience. So do I really want to get bent over figuratively and reamed financially to play your 3 exclusive games? I don't know about you. I would say no.
A cheaper product. It is what it is. Sony needs to realize this now before it's too late. I'm also noticing that Sony hasn't been posting much on social media or anything since they announced all of this too. They're likely, if I had to guess, waiting for Microsoft to post some layoffs or bad news themselves to get the heat off of them. But this is important that anyone watching this video realizes you cannot let Sony forget about this. You have to keep beating that drum and letting them know how you feel. If Sony wants to go all digital, they better become consumer friendly to the point that Steam looks anti-consumer, which I doubt they'll ever do, because otherwise the only thing different Sony from Steam at this point is for Sony, I guess, you get to play the next humiliation ritual female third-person action over-the-shoulder game from them exclusively by some PlayStation studio. Wow, Sony, thanks. This is in the end about ownership, okay? And who controls the future of games. Sony didn't create the first digital transition here, I know that. But PlayStation has become one of the most visible examples of where all of this is currently heading. The concern that many of us have isn't simply that digital is growing. We know that it's growing. We know that's not going to stop. It's just that physical options may continue shrinking until we no longer have a choice. And that's the point. And getting something back after losing it is way harder. And if the future of gaming becomes one where every purchase is like one license away from being gone, that's also inside a closed ecosystem, we're going to have to face the hard question of what we're giving up to realize the future before it's gone. Either way, what's happening now is a bit of a disaster for Sony, and it sucks as someone who plays there that this is all happening the way that it is. I wish it wasn't. I'm honestly angry.
I don't think it sucks. It is sweet music to my ears. Because anytime a company gets so high on their horse and so big for their britches that they forget the customers and the players and the people that put them where they are in the first place, you know what? Give them a spanking. Give them a good spanking. Knock them down a peg. It is beautiful. It is great. Because these companies need to be taught that without us, they would not exist. Not the other way around. And they also need to be taught that if they fail to provide a good product and a good service to their customers, eventually those customers will go somewhere else. Okay? So yeah, we give them money. We pay them money. But there's supposed to be an equivalent exchange. And when that equivalent exchange and that social market contract fails to get upheld, they need to be taught a lesson. Where's that lesson going to occur? In their share prices, in their pockets, in their money, in their revenue. Let them take a hit. Don't worry, Sony will be just fine. Sony is one of those too big to fail companies, but they need to be taught a lesson. Okay? And if you teach them this lesson by either canceling your subscription or by pirating Sony exclusive games, I really don't care. Just stop paying for crap products, or else these companies will never learn. All right. That's going to conclude it. I know I was going to react to a couple more videos, right? But there's a couple other videos I linked that I would recommend you watch. They're from Hypnotic. Okay, and I have them linked in the chat description. Apologies for the stream issues. Apologies for the long hiatus. Okay, I'm really gonna do my best to try to get back into a schedule with streaming, a predictable schedule. Hopefully, right? Hopefully, work and life cooperates with that. But I do want to get back into streaming again. All right, and so our next stream will be Friday evening at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But I know I didn't get a chance to react to these other two videos by Hypnotic, but I strongly encourage you check out those videos in the links. It's more people dunking on PlayStation. It's more people being fed up. I mentioned piracy earlier in this video. Okay? I'm not going to say I condone or don't condone piracy. Look, I pirate sometimes. Guess what? When they give me a good product, I stop pirating. It's just like Gabe Newell said. Piracy is a product issue, not a money issue. It's when a company fails to give a service that counterbalances or counteracts the desire to get stuff for free, people won't pirate, right? But if your prices for your games are too high, if you release a crappy product, if you treat your customers like criminals before they've even done any criminal activity, and the criminals are getting a better experience than you, that's when people pirate. And so people are looking for ways to jailbreak the PS5. And if you're not aware, the PS5, it's not completely jailbroken. And some firmwares are more jailbroken than others. And some of them require use of a rare physical game. It's become rare. Certain Star Wars game. I'm not going to say what that game is. Google it. right? But I think this is another reason why Sony is bucking against this physical ownership, because that was the way they exploited the PS5. And we're roughly 6 years into the console cycle, and they finally jailbroke it, and that first exploit came from a physical game. Now there's other exploits that exist using the YouTube app of all things, right? But again, no one wanted to pirate or jailbreak the PS5 other than a very small niche of people. I happen to be one of those niches. I don't have a PS5, but I've jailbroken almost every single console I've had eventually. But I like tinkering with stuff. I like hacking it. I like modifying my console to get peak performance or play not even pirated games, but to play other games that I would not be able to play and get other features that Sony or whatever other company fails to offer, whether it's custom themes, whatever, right? Piracy is not an issue with, oh, they're just broke. Because if you look at the numbers, most people that pirate, there are some people, and a lot of them are from countries that just cannot afford the rising cost of admission. When they're charging for one brand new game two-thirds to three-fourths of what someone in a certain country makes for their monthly living, right? Yeah, those people pirate because they can't afford to play the game. But it's not because people want stuff for free. If you provide a good product, people won't pirate the games. But again, my 2 cents is I think Sony is pushing back on a lot of this physical media because what opened the floodgates for the PS5 for jailbreaks was an exploit found in a physical game. And so you had to have a physical game, you had to have a PS5 with a disc drive. Now, the whole thing's opened up, and they're finding new exploits every day, and some of them are not even on physical games. The exploits are in YouTube app, things like that. Well, that's an all-digital app. That's not even, you can't get a YouTube disc and pop it in your PlayStation. But again, if Sony did not provide a crappy service, people would not pirate their games. Most people would not. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. Apologies for the stream issues. For those that stuck through the entire stream, I love you. Even if you were a lurker, even if you didn't say anything in the chat, I love y'all. We're looking to be back Friday evening at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Or is it Mountain Daylight Time? I don't know. 8 p.m. Mountain Time. All right? We're actually going to be playing some games. So, like I said, probably going to look to on Mondays that we're going to stream some sort of reaction content. And then Fridays and Saturdays is going to be me actually streaming games, okay? Because I don't like to just rely on the React content, all right? I think it's lazy, but I do want to react to some of this news going on in gaming and kind of give my 2 cents on it. Anyways, that's enough yapping. I hope you enjoyed the stream. See you again later on this week, and it's Moomer signing out. Peace.